right, so this is episode 8 of the Money Musician podcast.
Yes.
I got my buddy here. He's played hundreds of gigs, if not thousands of gigs.
So many.
He's played some really cool shows on the Strip. He's my favorite guitar player in Vegas, let's be honest.
All right, checks in the mail.
This is Jimmy Powers.
How are you doing?
Yeah, good.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, man. I like to do that little intro every time.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Consistency.
So what inspired you to play guitar in the beginning and start playing music just from when you were a kid?
When I think I was thinking about this, the first time I wanted to find a clip. I don't know if I can find a clip. There's this movie called like Bushwhacked, where it's a camping movie, and there's a kid that plays I don't know, he's 9, 10, 11, 12, and he's like ripping guitar. I'm like, oh my God, cool. And I remember seeing that and thinking to myself, I was around like 11 or 12, or no, I was 10 or 11. I remember thinking to myself, oh, I didn't know kids were allowed to touch guitars. You know what I mean? I thought that was like, that's a grown-up thing. And I'm like, wow, that kid, so he's doing it. It's like, and I'm like, I could do that too. And around that same time, a friend of mine had a guitar too, and like, oh yeah, let's learn some Metallica or something like that. Master of Puppets.
That was the first song.
That album or something like that. And
Seek and Destroy.
Or anything. And then just kind of like, he showed me a couple things, and then Christmas was coming around. I'm like, Dad, can I get a guitar? He's like, oh yeah, sure. And
How old were you then?
That was 11.
Okay, yeah.
That's when I was 11, and so right before that, right around the same time, is when I saw that movie, and I was like, oh, for some reason I just didn't think, oh, that's something like adults do,
right?
Because you're still like 9, coming from 9, 10, you don't.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting. Even though my dad's a drummer, he didn't really play it. He didn't really strum guitar. He can, but didn't around the house. So
you grew up with it?
Not really. That's the thing. Is like my dad is a musician, and he plays music, and he played it loud enough for me to hear it, but it was never like pushing anything on me, like oh, check this out, blah blah blah. So
guitar was your first instrument?
Yeah, electric guitar, straight to electric guitar. It took me I think 2016 is when I got like a serious acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
So that was when I moved here. I was like making some money. I'm like, okay, let me buy a $3,000 guitar.
Where were you at?
I moved here before moving here. I was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Oh, okay,
and
cool.
That's where I learned. That's where I got the guitar and stuff like that. So that's where I learned music. So yeah, basically around 11, saw that movie. A friend, Christmas time was rolling around. Bam. So
that's solid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the same time that I played guitar as well.
Yeah.
It was around 11, and that's like, and that was probably around, how old are you?
39.
39, okay, yeah. So that was probably, so that was like you're entering what is that, junior, you're almost going into junior high and stuff, like 5th and 6th grade maybe?
Yeah, yes.
And then did you
5th, 6th grade.
Did you start playing in some bands, or what did you?
So from there, it was, not really. I think I had one band rehearsal with like a quote unquote jazz band. And this was when like ska was happening.
Okay, yeah.
So I think I did like one, but then after that, not so much. It was more, I got lessons, and the cool thing about the school I was getting lessons at, it was like huge, and there was a lot of people in it. So it was like they had 4 different schools in the South Florida area, and I went to one of them. And
specifically a music school?
It's called ASM. It was called Associated School of Music. Been around since the 70s.
Oh, wow.
And by that time, it was like there's like a bunch of kids would, So the cool thing about going there was that, I got lessons there, got good at guitar, blah blah blah, and then they would have these bands that would like get together, and so basically I met like the top guys after, So I met my drummer and my bass player and the keyboard player, and we started playing like jazz stuff.
Oh, wow, okay.
Right? So...
Were you studying jazz?
So yeah, because it was at a school, and so at the school they would teach you whatever, you learn how to play guitar, like this, that, no, blah, blah, blah. this is that chord, and then like, okay, play some songs, and then it'd be either, you know, classic rock stuff or this and that. And one of my teachers was like, hey, we should start a jazz combo, because there was enough good musicians, like, you know, a handful of people that were you know, liked playing music. So he's like, okay, well, let's learn blues and jazz, and like, we should do this, you know. So and so that kind of started me on that, and I must have been, I mean, 12, 13, like 14.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's really young.
Yeah, starting to kind of like, so luckily with the school I went to, you know, the stuff they give you is like, okay, learn this string. Like, okay, E, F, G. Okay, cool. See you next week. You know, learn this string. Yeah, you know, B, C, D. All right, cool, blah, blah, blah. And so you learn it, each string going up, right? And by the fourth string, I thought to myself, I'm like, dang, this is starting to get hard. Like, either I'm gonna like stick with this, or I'm gonna give up and like do something else, like play soccer or something. So, which is, yeah, good thing I didn't do that. But so I decided to stick with it after that, and so then I learned that, and then you know, it's like, okay, you know, what lesson you have? Like, cool, I'll kill it. You know, blah blah blah. Come back. It was easy, quote unquote, stuff, but I stuck with it, and then like playing and got better, and playing with like CDs and tapes and stuff. And that kind of got me on that. And then I had a jazz combo, and then the two guys in there, we went on this Make-A-Wish Foundation trip with a school of like orchestra kids and stuff like that.
Your first tour?
Yeah, the first European tour, yeah, for sure. Like about 15 or 16.
I guess went to Europe.
Yeah, Europe for the Make-A-Wish Foundation thing. It was with a school kind of thing, but it was like kind of like a side school. Anyway, long story short, then with those guys, I'm like, let's start a trio. And so it was original stuff. That's when I kind of started getting into the original band stuff, which I feel like is like kind of lost, you know, nowadays. You know, it was hard back then too, I guess, to even do that. But it was cool because we were learned musicians that wanted to make original music. And so it was a nice little combo. And that was Haggis McGaggis was the name of that band. Yeah.
How'd you come up with that?
I don't know. I don't know. It was at the Europe trip. I don't know. I don't know. I wrote it down like, hey, this should be the band name, blah, blah, blah.
Is that when you started singing?
A little bit, but not so much. The bass player took over the vocal thing, and it was that sound. And then around that same time, there's another really good piano guy, singer-songwriter, this guy Jacob Jeffries, who lived next, pretty close to me. We went to the same school. Long story short, ended up playing with him, and he was more like songs, like, you know, with harmonies and stuff like that. So that's where I started working on singing backups and stuff like that. And again, he wrote like most of everything, but I would come in there and like support it with the guitar stuff. So it was cool, like songwriting things coming together. And I'm like, oh, we can harmonize here. And then later on, we started collabing on writing stuff more. And so that's where I got that thing. And then then I moved out here and had to figure out how to do that by myself. So now I'm like, a couple years in moving into here, I'm into Vegas. I'm like, okay, now I need to figure out how to run a band. You know, like usually I'm like, oh, I'm the guitar player for Haggis McGaggis. I'm the guitar player for Jacob Jeffries' band. You know, or I'm playing. You know, around. Okay, so and then I think one of the questions was, when did I consider myself like a musician?
Yeah.
Or like I can get paid doing this. I had a jazz gig. It was like every week for like 3 years. In the middle of that jazz gig, I got an offer to do top 40 gigs. So within like a long weekend, I had to learn like 40 top 40 songs.
Mm.
So there's like Luther Vandross, like the Gap Band.
That was kind of a lot different from what you're used to playing.
Well, yeah. I mean, wedding band music, you know what I mean? So like, you got the dance kind of stuff. The top 40, I was doing Justin Timberlake, Sexy Back, dun, 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 you know, doing holding that, and that was a whole nother lesson and kind of a cool thing. I was like, my point being is like, the more rounded off you are, the better off you're gonna be as a working musician, because with the learning the jazz stuff, okay, that's like the Shakespeare. That's like, now I can be a confident actor, you know, in whatever scene you need me in. So learning the jazz stuff was kind of like that background in music. That's very good. The original stuff is a different side of the brain. It's collaborating with people. It's knowing how to suggest something without insulting someone. Because that's the tensest moments are like when you're like, I don't think that's working. That drum is like, what do you mean it's not working? You know what I mean? Like, you know, but if you can learn how to work with people, some of the best lessons. One of this lesson, I was like, we were writing a song. I'm like, I came up with these two parts. And I don't know which one to play. And then the drummer is like, hey, why don't you try playing them together? And it was like such a like. It could be easy, like, no, I can't do that. Like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You know, but no, I was like, wait a minute, you're right. And so I was able to like fit half of that together. Okay, I can do this and then go into here, and then it's a little harder, but it sounds cool. You know what I mean? So just being able to take that advice from someone, use it, and be like, you know what, you're right. Man, that's a big lesson in working with people, just in general. Then after that, there's the what was right after that? The songwriting stuff, the singing stuff.
Oh, it was learning all the top 40 stuff.
Yeah,
or the wedding stuff.
Yeah. So then having that thing, now you have the dance, kind of like the discipline to just go like, boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 dun, 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 you know, for 2.5, 3 minutes, 4 minutes at a time.
Right, just grooving.
While the singers work in the crowd, and you know, all that kind of stuff. That's a certain kind of discipline, muscle. Also, kind of like a meditative, like you can get into a trance just by playing the same thing over and over again. So now you got, the jazz stuff, you got the original stuff, you got the dance stuff, you got the songwriter stuff. Now the solo guy stuff is like, okay, I got to be the drummer and the rhythm and sing, and like, so now you're putting all this stuff together. That's gonna really you get to this spot where you can start making money on it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's not so, where I've positioned myself with the connections, because the connections are a big deal. And like with the 2 gigs I have now, it's kind of afforded me to not have to do solo gigs if I don't want to, or you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's been a big deal for me. So move next to the what's it called? Where are we going? Moving here. We're to move into Vegas.
Yeah, let's kind of. So did you move here for music?
Yeah. So I moved here for a gig, and I got it from the drummer. Well, he didn't specifically give it to me. The connection I got was from the drummer from my band, Agats McGaggas, got a gig with Legends way before I moved out here. And so I had that connection with him, and I asked him, I called him a couple times, like, hey, you need me for any traveling gigs, because they do traveling stuff.
Yeah.
Let me know. So I did a couple of those, did well, didn't mess up anything.
This was for Legends.
This is for Legends, and this was a traveling gig. Every once in a while they do like 2 weeks here, a long weekend.
So that was
here.
like your first big gig.
that was like my first kind of, I would gig in that world. You know what I mean? Big gig is, I've had other gigs before that are like big in different situations, different like meaning. This was a good connection. You know, it's a good gig. So I did that, and then you know, got in good with that guy. Years later, they called me up. It's like, hey, we're gonna be switching out guitar players. If you come here and audition, you'll probably get it. So I came out, killed the audition because I know how to memorize things. You know, so like, hey, learn these 4 songs. And so I was the only one that actually memorized the 4 songs when I came in to do it. I saw the show before and saw like what the guitar player was doing, and like, okay, he kind of pauses and does a thing here.
Okay.
So I hit those things. You know what I mean? So I took the extra step to be like, you know, this is what you're gonna get. You know, I can do this. You know, and I was like, okay. So
that's awesome. So you over prepared.
Yeah, for the audition. Yeah.
That's super important.
Yeah, and then you know, and I talked to him. I'm like, hey, is there anything I need to know about these songs? You know, I'm like, hey, boy. He's like, oh yeah, make sure you nail this passage, because most of the guitar players don't nail it, and they're gonna listen for that. Like, okay, cool. You know, thanks. Blah blah blah. You know, all that kind of stuff.
That's great.
Yeah. So then I got that gig, and then so that's when I moved out here for that gig, which was fucking amazing, because to move out to a new spot and meet people, and not say like, hey, I need a gig. Do you have anything? You know what I mean? To just be like, hey, I'm Jimmy. Yeah, I just moved to town. Like, nice to meet you. And then move on. It felt so good just to be like not trying to hustle.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's cool.
How was that gig? Was that gig like every night, or how?
Yeah, when I moved here, the schedule changes, and it changed a little bit. But when I moved here, it was like 2 shifts. It was like 9 shows a week, or 10 or 11. I don't know. It would change. But sometimes we would do a 4:00 show and a 9:30 show.
And it was legends in concert, so like you guys would play like what?
Like Cher, Barry White, Michael Jackson, Elvis, Taylor Swift, Adele, Lady Gaga, Tina Turner, the Blues Brothers, like everybody, you know, Stevie Wonder. We did a Bob Marley one, Bon Jovi one.
And it would be like a set list, right?
Yeah, it would be like a set. It would be like a 15 or like a.
Like you guys would do the same set every night.
Well, it would, yeah, for each artist, tribute artist, they would have like their own set. It would be anywhere from 11 to 15 minutes or something. I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
You know, something like that.
Songs,
So you do like 4 acts and then just do that. So that was the cool thing about doing that gig is, well, moving to Vegas in general, it's like direct deposit. You get paid on time. That kind of thing. And
yeah, is it just like a 6-month contract, 3-month, or like,
it was yearly.
A year contract.
Yeah, it was a year contract. That just get renewed.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that was great. And so the cool thing about that gig is, learning how to work with the click, learning how to.
You're all wearing in-ears.
Yeah, it's all in-ear, and like.
So you had backing tracks and stuff like
There's
that?
backing tracks, and then you have your pedals and stuff like that, and you have the set list, and then there's cues and stuff like that. Talk back.
Were you nervous for your first gig?
Not so much nervous as like concentrating. But one thing that did happen, I think it was like on like the 3rd show, because I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this without any notes at all. Like, I'm gonna memorize the whole thing. One thing I did mess up on was like a Celine Dion intro, and it was just because I was like, wait a minute, what's the next song? And I just so from then on, what I learned to do is there's a set list, and you put the set list down, and then write in little notes of like, oh, I forgot this chord progression, and then you just write it next to it. And then pretty soon you don't need that. So that was my method for playing a show where like you can have the music up, but you're not supposed to have the music up in front of you. So
You're just slowly fine tuning it.
it's like, well,
in your mind.
you memorize. What I would do is like you get a recording of it. Most of the time, you can get a recording of the live show. And so what I did was I got a recording of the last guitar player, and I'd be like, you know what? I can learn these songs from this paper, or I can just figure out exactly what he's doing and then try and play it better.
Right.
You know, so it's like, oh, okay. Instead of however it's worded out here in this music, what's the guitar player doing? It's like, oh, he's on the 7th fret. He's doing this inversion of the chord. All right, cool, I got it. So that saved me a lot of time for memorizing, and then I would go through the top to bottom, see if I could do it, and then when I could do it, I put a little set list down, any notes that I'm like, this is kind of giving me trouble still, this and that. Boom, got that, and then pretty soon you have it memorized. And then you don't need to think about it for the rest of the time you need it. You need to play that set, you know.
So you had this song, so that you get to a certain point where you have the songs down and all your parts figured out. But then you guys also do a lot of like movements and stuff.
There's there's choreography stuff, which is cool, and the lessons I learned, because there's always cool lessons, like I said, with learning in the school, learning this and that, learning the dance music, the wedding, all that stuff. The thing I learned about this one, which was surprising, was like how to stay present in the moment and not think about like your grocery list while you're in the middle of a song. You know what I mean? Because if you play something over and over, like the same show over and over again, every day, there comes a time where like you start making mistakes again, but it's because you're not thinking about what you're doing. You're just like, I know this.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so that's been a big thing too, which could transfer over to solo guitar stuff too. It's like, yeah, I got to play Wonderwall again, like this and that. But instead of like zoning out and just head day's gotta be a day, and I'm gonna shoot myself in the head. You know what I mean? Like instead of doing that, you could actually be like, you know what? The only time I should be excited and like is on the stage, is playing music. Like you were getting paid to do this for a couple hours, and now you're complaining about 4-minute song. No, come on, let's go. Like, how to kind of like stay excited has been a big lesson that I see. I'm still trying to tell people, like, because I play other places where I'm like brother, like like we're all up there. We all don't, but come on, let's go. This is the one time to not be chilling, to not be like,
right.
Zoning out. No, come on, let's go. It's not. We don't have to customer service anybody. Oh, have you ever been a waiter? Or
I've been a busser.
Or busser and all that stuff. Oh my god, dude. I mean, I probably get away with bussing, or I wash dishes in the back just so you don't deal with people, because it's like just the fact that we don't have to deal with that. We should always be grateful that we're playing music. Be excited, be happy. Like come on. There's plenty of other people that'll do it and have a good time doing it. So that's what I learned from doing a track over and over again. Is like, how can I be excited? And then you pick your like 8 bars, like, oh, these 8 bars, I'm gonna like rip it up because I have a little chance here. So you can kind of like, there's some cool things with that kind of gig.
And you had some pretty cool solos in that.
Yeah,
some of those songs, right?
I'm playing a show with them, like a traveling show, a one-nighter, and it's gonna be with Freddie Mercury. So I get to do some Brian May solos and stuff like that. So that's cool. Bohemian Rhapsody. Like I gotta remember that. I gotta learn it again. But there's some really cool stuff in there. So
and how are the travel gigs? Maybe I'll ask you about that a little bit.
The travel gigs are cool. They're
Do they fly you out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is one gig.
Do you bring all your gear with you, or is
no?
it there?
So here's what I've been doing: is you rent gear. You rent the guitar. out there, so you don't have to stress about it on the plane ride. Here's one thing to think about too: is when you're traveling with your gear. If you're traveling with a company, the company is not going to buy your gear a seat. You know what I mean? They're not going to pay for you to go. You know, they're not going to pay for your carry-on. You know what I mean? They might give you some extra money to do it, and like it's going to be better for you to like have the company rent gear out there. That's like that. That's like a revelation. I'm like, and I didn't do this last time. I'm like, oh man, I should have done it. But I did it the time before, and I'm going to do it the next time coming up, and that's just going to save so much trouble, like traveling.
Is that just your amp, or do you bring your pedals?
I would bring my pedals.
Okay.
And then they would get the amp and the guitar.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and like.
What do you play? Just
when
Strat,
I asked for at least like a Les Paul. If it's like a one-nighter, I think I did a Les Paul and a Telly. The one time I did this other thing, like, you know, it depends on like where you're playing. Sometimes they have options. The one place I went to, the guy's like, "Hey, what kind of guitar are you on?" I'm like, "Oh shit! If I would have known about this, I would have brought my guitar." And I'm like, "I'll try that Telly and then that, you know, Les Paul, and then I'll take care of everything." So anyway, traveling, try and rent your stuff out there if you're traveling with a company.
And they just put you up in like a hotel, or
yes.
how does it? Or is it just like a?
It's a hotel, yeah. So the next one, like for example, the next one we're going to is Mohegan Sun, and that's in Connecticut. And then it's at a hotel. It's a casino in a hotel. And so you get put up in the hotel, and then you play at the stage, and then
You guys just do sound check.
Yeah, sound check
Kind of go over some things.
Sound check the day before, or yeah, I think it's the day.
Oh, so it's like a 2-day thing.
Yeah. It was one nighter. It ends up being like 2.5 days at least if you're really hustling. Excuse me. Sorry. Get
That's
excited.
Cool.
No, but yeah. So that's the travel thing, and so yeah. What was the next question?
That's cool, man. No, it's cool to hear about all this, because there's like, that's one of the things that I haven't done any like big like shows or anything like that. I mean, I've like played with other bands and stuff, but like, and you were talking about being like a band leader now.
Mm-hmm.
So how has it been from going from like that to leading your own band? Like, what are the differences, do you think?
The hardest thing for me was coming up with the set list of songs that I want to do, because it might. So now you think about it. I moved here. I don't have to do cover gigs for my main source of income.
Right.
Because I'm playing other things. So now it's like, okay, this is a band that I need to do, or else I go crazy, you know. So I have to pick songs that I want to sing, that I like, and that I can pull off with a band that probably doesn't need a rehearsal.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So yeah. So
the least amount of practice.
You get the best musicians. You can kind of cut back on the. If you know how to lead a band, if you know the song, and you know how to adapt and stuff like that, that's kind of my style of leading my band. But just leading a band in general, the hardest thing was like coming up with a set list of songs you want to do, coming up with the musicians that you want to play with, and then like booking yourself. So in this town, there's basically one venue that's like perfect for me, and so that's the Sand Dollar. So I got in good with them.
Why do you think it's perfect for you?
Because they don't tell you what to play. I get to play with my own instruments. It's not like in the casino, you can't be super loud. Not that I want to be super loud. It's more like the right kind of loudness.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like you can't have an amp on stage. So the reason it's perfect for me, I mean, there would be other ones, but it's not like a working gig one where they expect like, oh, get kids dancing, you know, kind of
Right,
that.
right.
You know, it's not that kind of band or venue. And I feel like most of the venues are like that.
Right, right.
Most of the places to play are kind of like, hey, you know, this isn't Art Fest, you know, 2024. It's we want people in here drinking, you know, or something like that. So it's weird. It's
You get to play loud. You get to
yeah. I mean, I get to play what I want to play.
different songs.
I get to play what I want to play, and nobody's like, the most they'll say is like, hey, it's a little loud, you know, because if there's not a lot of people there, or if the amps are pointed at the bar, you know. So there's another things you learn. There's like bar stuff. So what I've been doing at that place is like turn the amps in a little bit towards the stage, so that I can get like the loudness, and it's not directed right at the sound guy or the bartenders, because then they're like, it's too loud, you know.
Well, I feel like most people don't even think about that too. Is like even just having a good monitor, because essentially you're using your amp as like a monitor, right? To feel the solos, feel the.
Well, no. The amp is very much the sound, and it's like there's guitar. I was talking to someone. There's guitar, and then there's electric guitar. They're totally different things. Like you could play the acoustic guitar. So acoustic guitar, all the skills are the same when you move over to an electric guitar, right?
Right.
But it's a totally different thing of how you get the sound once it comes out of the guitar. And so with the electric guitar, there's a lot more to consider with like the amp and the pedals, and it's very much a part of the sound of the electric guitar. It's not built in like this. The sound is built in here. It's like this is the sound. Then you can just amplify it. But with an electric guitar, it's not hollow. It's not resonant enough to carry it, you know, to carry a tune by campfire, you know. So that's where there's a difference. So the amp is not so much to monitor; it's more to get the sound of the acoustic or of the electric guitar sound, and then the way you turn it is so that you're not blowing out the people that are trying to mix you in the room, right? So that way I don't have to compromise my volume. There could be a whole nother podcast on just like amp volume and the gain structure of your pedals, your guitar volume, your amp volume. There's a certain thing you have to get to, and I bet like 99.9% of all the sound guys are going to tell it to turn down because they're sound checking with the guitar by itself. Right. So when the guitar, here's the difference. I'll rant real quick on just this thing. When you play guitar by itself, it's always going to sound louder than when anything else is going on around it. So like if you're playing drums, bass, and then you play guitar, it's going to sound not as loud as it did when it was just guitar, right? So what happens is it's nobody's fault, but they're like it feels like maybe the guitar players, a lot of them are nice and respectful how they should be, but don't know how to readjust to the full band. Here's my thing. I was watching a friend of mine play recently, and I could hear the guitar, but it was low once everybody's like, hey, yeah, keep playing. Boom, 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 boom. You know, everything. And he's ripping guitar solo, and I can hear him, but so then I asked him out on the thing. I'm like, hey, let me answer this. Like, when you were playing guitar, did it sound loud enough to you on stage? And he's like, no. He's like, you're right. You're right. Trust it, because they'll tell you out there like, oh, we got you. We'll adjust you out here. No, they're not going to adjust you out there unless it's your best buddy. You know, so that's just someone who's paid, you know, doing Aerosmith. Then they'll turn your guitar solo up. You know, if not, you kind of have to compensate, and you shouldn't compensate with the monitor, because if you think about it, there's a guitar amp sound, right? That's like unprotected fun. You put it through a microphone that goes through a wire and comes out a totally different speaker that's built for everything. Mm-hmm. It's not just built for guitars, it's built for everything. And now you're pumping that sound louder than this. No, it's backwards. It's backwards. You're listening to the protected, unfun part of the music, right? So that's a very delicate balance. I always tell the sound guy, like, don't put the guitar too loud in the. For acoustic, I'm talking electric guitar now. This is an electric guitar with amps, with a tube amp. You know, so like this, yeah.
That's a great point.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing where it's like I still have pushback from people, and I'm like, yo, I'm on 2.5, and they're like, you got to be at 2. Like, come on. I'm gonna adjust once everything is going. So it's weird. How I was taught to do it is like you want the guitar speaker to kind of start moving a little bit. And then you can start doing stuff with your pedals to get the sound tighter and a little bit more in your face. And then it's small adjustments from there. But you kind of want to have the speaker moving a little bit, at least. That's like bare minimum. And then, yeah. If you have one of your questions was like, what's if you had one amp and one guitar and one this, what would you pick?
Yeah.
So
we'll hit that up. Yeah.
So moving right into that one, if you have a really good amp, like that, I think it's the magic wattage is like 22. So I think that's like Princeton's and like deluxe reverbs. Those kind of like medium amps, if you turn that up to like 10, that's going to sound better than all your pedals and everything else. You know what I mean? So there's definitely different ways of getting that tone, and that's a more old school thing, and it's kind of harder to get because, I mean, when's the last time you turned your amp up to like 10?
Right.
It feels illegal, you know. It feels like you're like it's too loud. Turn it down, you know. So, but once the drums are going and stuff like that, I played our friend Steve Bonacci was doing a thing at the Sand Dollar, and I sat in on his thing, and he had a deluxe reverb, and they had like a bunch of pedals, and it's still like his sound was like I can't hear you, and like because all the way it's adjusted. It's probably perfect for the studio.
Oh, right.
You know, and like it's but then once everybody starts playing, it's a totally different thing. It just gets buried. And so I said, what? You have this in? You just turn it up. And so I pulled out the guitar thing, I took the guitar and I just plugged right into the guitar amp. I just turned the volume up pretty much all the way, or 8, something like that. And then I'm like, look, boom, it sounded like perfect, like, like you could do that because it's loud enough. It's loud enough to get over the drums a little bit if you have a mic in it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if you like use like a 5-watt amp and stuff like that, no, that's not gonna cut it with a band.
So you like the 22 watt?
I think the 22.
Is that what you normally
I think
play?
the 22 watt is like the most, the one that you're gonna be able to turn up, get a great sound, so that you need less pedals.
What guitar do you play?
So in that situation, if it was just one forever,
if you just had to choose one for the rest of your life,
it would, as long as it never. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because I like the Strat because you can you can modify it.
How would you modify it?
So like pretty much how I have it modified now, which is there's a hotter pickup in the back one that's got a blend knob. So you get the tone, the Strat tone, which is like kind of like, you know, the Strat tone, dancey thing up here, and then you can kind of like soar a little bit if you know, you have the hotter pickup back here. So that's like that's a good one. I would say, you know, like a 335 or something like that, because it's such a great guitar, like, and it's like a fine guitar, you know what I mean? Like Gibson 335. That going through like a Fender Deluxe cranked up, it's like, oh, that's the sound, you know what I mean? So it'd probably be I could live with a 335 and a Deluxe. Like they're both like
Okay.
perfect.
What if you had to choose like one or two pedals that you could just use? What would they be?
It would probably be like if I didn't have to worry about the like the overdrive and stuff like that, just because I could just turn up my amp. It would be a delay and like a wah pedal.
Which one?
I have the flashback delay.
Nice.
Because it's
the blue one.
The blue one. I have the flashback delay because it does everything I need it to do. It's clean. You know, it's built like a tank. And then the slash wah has been the most kind of like consistent sounding new wah. Yeah. I think, yeah. Like you can go just get any slash wah and it's gonna sound cool.
Yeah.
That's my opinion on that.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good setup. When did you realize you could make a full-time income playing music?
Okay, so yeah, to answer that question, there was a time, it was in the middle of my jazz gig, which was basically like my college, because doing jazz for 2 nights a week for like 3 years, I played so much differently. And this was when I was reading that book. I was reading Effortless Mastery around that same time. Between the beginning of that and the end of that, I was like, my playing got so much better. In the middle of that gig, I got a top 40 gig where I had to learn top 40 songs. And then I came back to the jazz gig and my jazz was killing. So that's one lesson. It was like, if you want to get really good at jazz stuff, if you really dig into the top 40 stuff, and then go back to the jazz, everything helps each other. So that's one comment I would make to like the kids coming from college and like doing jazz, and like if you don't think knowing Miley Cyrus's Flowers, knowing the fact that it comes in on beat 2, if you don't consider that as important as knowing Miles Davis's you know what I mean? Both deserve respect. And so if you can do that, it helps everything. That being said, in the middle of one of the top 40 gigs, I'm like getting dressed. I'm at the hotel. We're in like Tampa. It was a travel gig for a weekend at Blue Martini. I was getting dressed. I had like a frilly shirt on, you know, looked like I'm the guitar player playing at a Blue Martini. And I looked in the mirror and I'm thinking, I guess I'm a musician now. You know what I mean? I guess I'm like a working musician now. So I just remember that was kind of a moment that like I took note of it as I was like getting ready to do the gig. I'm like, I just traveled, you know, a couple hours to do a weekend thing at this, making a few $100 playing music where I'm like, I'm like, it's like, oh, I guess I'm a working musician. So that was when I first realized that.
Did you have a job at the time, or was it the only thing you were doing?
So I worked at a park for about 2 weeks, and then I got fired because I was smoking weed in the what's it called, the tennis courts. Like nobody was there, and you know what I mean. Nobody was there, and so then some guy came and it smelled like weed there, and so fucking got fired. But but it was no. Luckily, I've been able to do work enough to do that. But like I was still living at home, or I had roommates, or this. It wasn't like, you know. But it was still, that's what I did. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was when I realized that.
And did you always have that dream of just doing music full time?
Well, I think the dream initially is with the band, is with your original band. The dream is, and it's always been, and it's like we had this one festival we did. There's no feeling like playing your original music in a new town to new kids, and they get it right away and they go nuts. To me, I've been trying to get to that ever since. That's been the moment where it's like, this original music that me, my brother on drums, and my brother on bass came up with, the whole new original songs, we're playing it for these people who have never fucking heard, and it was called Teen Fest or something like that, and it was in Sarasota, so somewhere unknown, and they lose their mind. Like, that is the best feeling in the world. Artistically, you know, that was like, wow, this is it. So the dream is always like, do this on a bigger scale. You know what I mean?
Right.
Along the way, you know, life happens, and it's not like, unless you're like, I would say like Green Day or something like that. Like, they're not gonna do a jazz gig.
Right.
That bass player is not gonna pick up an upright and play top 40 stuff. You know what I mean? Whether or not he could or not, by now, maybe he could. I don't know. I like those guys. I love all those guys. But the point is, they had nothing else but that band. You know what I mean? And that's why it worked. With my band, we were all good enough to do everything. So the drummer was the first one to like, hey, you know, I'm tired of living at home with mom. You know, I'm out of here. You know, so he got the gig with with that, and so then we start. You know, same thing with the bass. Everybody starts having to do their own thing because it's life. You know, you got to. You know, so. You know, my one comment is there's not enough bands because it doesn't make sense. Like, to me, the dream was like Leonard Skinner, where it's like you get a bunch of guys in a sweaty room coming up with amazing guitar parts for a killer song. Everything's rehearsed, everything's tight, everything's amazing, it's original. That is the dream. That's been the dream, and that's been dead for years. You know what I mean? Maybe the 80s. But so now any of the bands that are making like Incubus and stuff like that, those guys, man, they came out of like Malibu suburbs. You know what I mean? Like they could afford to keep doing that. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's my little what I see. You know, like Allman Brothers. That was a band. There were a lot of talented people, but they stuck together in like one house and like came up with a sound and blah blah. I think. Maybe Eddie Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard or something like that. Those guys, there's some like underground-y kind of bands like that. But that was the dream, you know. And then after that, it's like, okay, I have to keep playing. You know, it's just, this is not something like, it's not a career decision for me to like play music and stuff like that. It's like, oh, this is what I love doing. So now the dream is like, okay, you know, being able to do this. Come out with original stuff that I like, and then see what happens. Whatever it is, as long as I'm supporting my family and stuff like that, that's like, I'm already successful in that world. You know what I mean? So that's the best part for me.
And that's kind of one thing that, I mean, sometimes when you start out too, you don't even know that it's possible to play that many gigs and make enough money. Like, I don't know. That was kind of one thing that I remember thinking about in California was like, I didn't even know. I remember going to jazz school and I'm like, oh, I love music. And every time I'm at some other job, I'm always just thinking about playing music. And then it was like, at a certain point, I feel like just a lot of people don't even know that you can make a full-time living playing gigs.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a crazy realization when you play your first couple of gigs and you're like, oh, like if I just do enough of these, in 1 year, then I don't have to do anything else.
Right, right.
And that's a huge, I don't know, for someone who really just is passionate about music, it's like, that's such a huge thing. I don't know, because it just, then all your life is just music, and it just changes a lot of things.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. There's a balance between hustle and the love of it. Like you said, like this is something that was just like you couldn't help thinking about it. So that's a sign, and that's a good thing. There's not that many, but there are people that are like get into it because they just can do it, and that's you be careful coming into like because I know you have money and music in the same sentence as the podcast and stuff like that, but don't think of music as a way to make money. Think of like, okay, I need to do music. How do I make money doing it? If you're going at it like that, then the most important stuff is usually like staying inspired, rather than like, oh, I gotta make sure I get to get, gigs are important. You gotta get work, stuff like that. But what's more important too is if you want to keep doing this and be happy doing it, is you have to keep being inspired, and so that's more of a full-time endeavor. And
yeah, what keeps you inspired, or what keeps you excited about it? Because like you said, like sometimes we play a lot of the same songs, or sometimes you're playing a lot of the same places. Or how do you stay inspired or excited?
I have to. So early on when I moved here, like I said, I had to learn how to be a band leader, and that was basically just to keep me from going crazy, and like staying sane, playing all the other things I do for money, basically. So like Legends, I luckily it was good. I play MJ Live now. Luckily, great. I get to play Michael Jackson songs. Wow, awesome. Like to make money doing that, it's great. But if that's the only thing you do, you're gonna go crazy. So I had to do something where I'm like, okay, I need to feel like I'm doing something creative and new and fulfilling. And so the way I've been able to do that is like, okay, I learned the songs I like to learn, pick the guys I like to pick, and then just play instead of like, okay, it's got to be this version. No. I learned how to lead a band, be like, okay, this is the groove. Like, what do you got? Okay, cool, keep that. I like that. Like bass usually just falls right in. And then I lead through the song. Like, I'll call out the chorus when we go to the chorus or some of that. Like, so that just being able to do that, that's kept me, if I can do that a couple times a month, like at least once a month to like any more is great. That keeps me, I go back to my other gigs refreshed, ready to play, to work, ready to have fun, so that's the more important once you kind of like are working enough. So,
and those might even be the shows you're talking about. Those might be original shows, or those might be cover shows, but then you're also kind of arranging those covers in your own way, or you're soloing on top of it. So there's that creative aspect to it.
Yeah. It's definitely my own thing. And then, I have original songs too, and there's a few of them I can pull off, like, without a rehearsal, be like, hey, I write down the chords and like, is this to this section, like, just look at me, stop it here. So that too is another one. Currently, I'm working on getting stuff. My drummer has his own studio. I want to get my equipment in there and start recording ideas, get new stuff. So that has nothing to do with making money, but it's,
right.
If I didn't have that, I'd be going. It's rough. It's almost like practicing guitar too much, where like you don't right. you go back to it and it's like work. No, it has to be fun. So sometimes, like one of my favorite guys from Florida, Billy Vasquez, who's like basically my older brother on guitar, I would never see him practice guitar, never, like ever. But he would come up on stage and just be like, "Oh, fucking ripping," like, and just where did that come from? What? So like, you don't want to overdo stuff too. So like you overwork, but then you're not doing something that you love doing, you're gonna burn out. You over practice, but you're not having a good time when you're playing, you're gonna burn out. So
Very, yeah, well said. Yeah, I noticed that too. If I have like 3 or 4 gigs in a row, and a lot of the solos that I do are just like I'm just improvising in whatever key it is, and I noticed by the 4th gig, I'll just be drained, or like there'll just be no more ideas. But those first 2 gigs,
yeah, you're cool.
it's going off.
Yeah,
the solos are going off, right? And you're just like you feel fresh, and you just I think that's what the one thing that actually makes it exciting too is because it kind of gives you that freedom because we are playing cover songs for some of these gigs, and then just you being able to solo on top of it gives you that creative outlet to improvise and do what you want. So what do you think about when you're soloing? Let's go into that.
So that's a good segue because I was going to say the one way to keep it fresh and to keep it because you're not going to be is to learn like whatever song you're playing, learn the melody on the guitar. Learn the melody, or learn like maybe
the vocal melody
on the guitar. So use that for the solo. You know, if you don't know what to play over this, what is the singer doing over it? Start there. Once you start there, then you have something to latch onto that you can mess around with. That's in the song. It's part of the song. You know what I mean? And then the next song has nothing to do with what you did. You know what I mean? Because the next song is a different melody. Hopefully, you know.
Right.
You know. So that would be my suggestion for that. Like, you're playing this song to this song. Learn the melody, or maybe there's a keyboard part, or there's a vocal harmony thing. Like this is cool too. Is like what do you practice after a while? Because there's only so many things you can do. One of the things like I like to do is with Parliament Funkadelic. It's the band Parliament Funkadelic. If you try to play the bass line, the chords, the vocal melody, keyboard parts, the harmonies, da 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 da. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff like this. Look, watch.
Yeah.
I use this all the time. So there's like something like this. So it like that kind of groove. And it's like, you know, that we want the funk, gotta have the funk. That's a thing. You know, you can go. Right? So that one of the horn lines is. That is so cool. I use it all the time. Like,
so essentially, you're saying just you're learning each instrument in the song.
You learn,
and you're using those melodies or licks to solo.
Yeah. You know.
And maybe it's because they're not thinking like guitar players, so you're getting all these different ideas.
You're getting all the different ideas. There's I wanna go back and get more of that funky stuff. Gotta get some more of that, more of that funky stuff. You know what I mean? Like
those are like the background vocals.
Yeah, those are background vocals. Or I'm still trying to figure out how to finger it the best.
Really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like each instrument becomes its own guitar.
Each instrument becomes a guitar thing. Tommy Emmanuel. Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah, he's great. I
So
saw
like.
him
I haven't practiced it, but
right, yeah.
You know, all that kind of stuff.
He's doing the bass line. He's doing the chords. He's doing the melody.
This is the solo guitar. This is how I like learned, was like on the street. My friend who would do this, like, you're like, oh, that's how he's doing it. Like there's a bass drum. There's like a click, you know,
for the snare.
You know, whatever it is, like he can, you know, I'm not like great at that because I don't really play like that very often, but it's a thing. Like, you know who's good at it? John Mayer. John Mayer's great at it. Mm-hmm. I'll give him some credit. I'm not a big fan of his solo guitar stuff, like guitar soloing. But his acoustic guitar playing and songwriting, you know, he's great with that. So he's definitely like this guy.
So this would be like the drums, and then you're playing.
It's just everything. Bass.
Got the bass.
Tuck Andrus is another guy. Tuck Andrus. He was before Tommy Emmanuel, but he's another guy who like combines stuff. So that's the direction you want to be moving into once you learn all the scales and all this stuff, like all this stuff that like people are still obsessed with, which is like, oh, what scale do I play over this? And I'm like, no, like you know enough. Start learning some songs. Start learning the mechanics of what goes into a whole track, you know, and learning what's going on. Again, how can I play that at the same time? That's gonna be like the constant inspiration, you know. So
that's it. Yeah, that's so great, because a lot of musicians listening or guitar players listening, they're just going to listen to a track and play the guitar part, or either the rhythm part or the lead part. But then there's so much more to the song. Mm-hmm. There's the main vocal melody. There's the bass line, which is huge. Bass lines on guitars are so cool. And then there's all the, like you said, the backup vocals, how all the harmonies work together and stuff. There's so many more ideas.
There's a lot of jelly in those donuts. You know what I mean? You got to know how to get it out. There's just a lot of stuff, you know. So, I mean, I was just even thinking about really the basic is like, it's like. You know, like if you don't have that kind of like that rolling around in you, it's, you know, that's where you really got to start, you know. And then there's like songs and stuff like that. Like you don't need much. There's like songs like old spirituals where like it's just like, you know, like that kind of thing is such a cool. I didn't come from that. I was just the guitar player. Mm-hmm. I didn't come from like, oh, we're at a campfire. Here, sing us a song. Sing everybody a song. And like I was like, you play a song. I'll do like, you know, I'll play something around it. Right. You know, so that's been a big thing for me, because I came at it from like almost like the Jimi Hendrix-y area where it's like just guitar player. Right. Then got to figure out how to do the singing, songwriting stuff afterward. Where there's a lot of other guys like Paul McCartney, who's like singing, songwriting, mastermind, still trying to like kill it on guitar. You know, it's still good. He's good, but he's not like, you know, right. He's not like killing.
Right.
So I feel like there's like a.
There's two worlds.
I'm trying to head back into like the singing, you know, get the music out, like get that the vocal thing going as freely as this, you know, as this feeling is. So that's
yeah, it's hard to describe.
It's there,
Or is that-
it's a weird kind of resonance of like, and then not pushing behind. It's every time anybody talks about it, that you can't really explain it. But it's like it's not over singing, and it's not under singing, and it's being able close enough to the mic. There's a lot of things in there, and then it's having the pitch in your head. Because I remember one piece of advice from someone is like, well, I can't hear myself in the monitors. Like, you're supposed to be able to hear yourself in your head. You know what I mean? When you're singing, you know, no matter how loud, you know, it is, you're supposed to be, hey, this is the note, right. Not like, you can't turn up in the monitor. No bullshit. They didn't have monitors back in the day. Like just have it in your head. You know what I mean? So that's like another old school kind of, most of the old school guys like James Taylor, they're like, do you need any more on your monitor? I was like, no, I'm good.
Yeah,
he's been doing it for so long. He knows how it feels. He knows what's on pitch.
Right.
So
it just follows the resonance.
There's it's not that hard if you do it, if you know how to do it. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to like learn how to do it. I think it takes a certain person to be a good singer, like initially, because they kind of have to be more outspoken. Because
what do you mean?
When I started playing guitar, the thing I liked about guitar is like I could go into my room, turn my little amp, my practice amp, like down, but it still sounds like dun, 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 something like that, and not bother anybody and just practice my guitar. You know what I mean? To do that with vocal, can you imagine like your roommate's like shut up, like la da 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 da, like it just feels like who do I think I am to subject somebody else to my voice? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how I thought about it, and really I feel most comfortable singing when there's a loud band behind me, because then I'm like, I have to sing loud. I have to be loud, guys. Sorry, So it's a weird kind of it's been a weird, interesting journey for me, just kind of trying to get out of my shell of like, I need to figure this out. I need to like get comfortable with it, and I'm getting there. But it's interesting. It's different than guitar, where it's like so. Give me a second. No, I won't bother you. Let me just work on this thing. Get in my room and
Right. So what is it? So let's stay on the solo thing. So what do you do a lot of improvised soloing?
Yeah.
On a lot of your stuff.
Yeah.
And dude, yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of guitar players in Vegas. I think you're the best in Vegas, dude. To be honest.
I love playing, man. That's the thing is like if you have the right. I said this. I have a thing, like a little lesson on my Instagram, Jimmy Powers V, on Instagram.
There you go.
No, but there's a lesson there that's you're not going to sound the best that you can ever sound is if you don't have your own equipment, your own band, your own set list. That once you set up all those things, the soloing and like the having fun and playing music, it comes easier. It's not so much work. And so I like to get to that point first. And then as far as like the playing solos over the song, what a lot of people kind of do is overthink what they need to play over a song. Like there's this one song, here's an example. There's it's from like Tedeschi Trucks, where it's like it goes from E and then it goes to A. Well, what some people would do is like they solo over an E, right? And then when it comes to the A, they start soloing over A. But actually sounds better than that is soloing over E, over that A. So here's what I mean. Like, so you got like a E major sound, right? Then when you go to the A, if you stay on the E, you get this kind of interval. Now you're getting a jazzy thing without thinking jazzy, right? So you're getting this very complex sound just by sticking to the key of the song and playing over the 4 chord. So if I go, and then back to E. Right? So all I was thinking there was E over that A chord. So I feel like that's like knowing how to boil it down to a key is important, and then sticking to that. Well, one other thing that I learned cool that's will be useful is if you ever have any 2 major chords next to each other in a song, those are the 4 and the 5 chord of the key of the song. So one very specific example, Dreams. So what would you play over that? Do you know?
Just in C major.
You C major.
Yeah.
Right. So you play C major, which is like an A minor pentatonic. You can think of it like that too. You're not going to play anything F or this and like that. But here's the difference: is you're going to play an A minor pentatonic, but with a natural 6 in there. I feel like I might be losing people with that kind of the way that I'm saying it. It would be C major. But anyway, figuring out that was like a big step. I'm like, oh, what do you play over this? Same thing with like. When you play that kind of progression, the A minor you play, you don't want to hit that note, which is like a lot of people do. Mm-hmm. So like, you don't want to go. And it's like, oh no, that's not the key of the song. It should be like. Instead of, I mean, you can get away with it if you're like Prince or something like that, but anyway, so like as far as like thinking when I'm soloing, it's like, okay, what key am I in? Make sure I know what to do.
That's the first thing.
That's the thing. It's like, what key am I in? So most of the time it's the first chord, but in stuff like Dreams, they don't hit a C chord. They don't hit an A minor. Well, they hit an A minor chord in the one part. Mm-hmm. But they don't hit a C chord. So you're like, if you're just looking at F to G, you're like, what do I play, F or G? Like, no, you play C.
Right.
So that's kind of like one of the tricky things. It's not super tricky, but you'd be surprised. Out what keys. Yeah. You'd be surprised.
Oh, totally. And then when you are thinking about like improvisation and stuff like that, are you thinking like, all right, I'm going to go up to this note here? Are you thinking like, I'm going to tread on this pentatonic scale up at this fret? Like, what goes through your head when you hit that boost pedal on stage and then you just let it rip?
It's I guess what goes through my head is more focusing on it's like concentrating on not thinking about what you're gonna play. But so what you do is you outsource your brain to think about like, okay, am I in the groove? Because that's the easiest thing to like stick, and it's the most important thing to stick. So if you focus on that first, now you know the key of the song and you know the groove of the song. If you know the melody of the song, now you're cooking already. You can just stay there. And then when you want to keep going and you want to do a big solo, what I think about is Derek Trucks, when he tells like a story. There's the soft part and there's the hard part, like the heavy part, like and then the ripping, and then there's this really soft beginning part. The middle part is the hardest part to do. So it's like if you're gonna be nice and sweet and like and then by the end of it you're gonna be like, what's in between that? There's the middle section where like the energy starts peaking up, starts pushing forward and stuff like that. Being able to kind of do the middle part is like the ultimate goal of like, wow, he just took us through a journey. You know what I mean? And so that has to do with kind of like phrasing. So a thing to think about with the playing part, what helps me is like, okay, like the soft part, okay, you're doing less notes and you're doing softer. At the end, you're doing louder notes, probably faster, probably higher up. So what you're gonna do in between it is kind of start getting the intensity going more. And the way to do that is to like signal to people that you're working into a downbeat. Okay, so if you think about it like in four bars, so like 1, 3, 4, it's like halfway through, top, halfway through, right? So you're leading into that one. What kind of helps me and what I've noticed with people I like and how I hear them play is you start something like 1, 2, 3, 4. Like I'm leading into that next part, no matter how I'm playing it. It's like so a lot of times I'll do like something in for 4 bars and then something kind of like rhythmically out for 4 bars, so that it can lead me back to an in sound for 4 bars. So for 4 bars I'll be like, next one, now I'm back in on something. I'm working into something. So it's kind of like you're grooving, then you're kind of getting weird, back into the groove. So if you can kind of do that, that kind of gives your solo motion. Another thing that helps me and what I've noticed is like not playing notes on like 2s and not playing on the downbeats. So like if you look back at most of my solos, you can usually always hear the snap of the snare still. I'm not like I kind of like I'm like, you know what I mean? Or I'll play right before the crash on the 1. So I'm like 1, 2, 3, you know what I mean? So there's a relationship between when I hit a note and when they hit a note. And if you do that, you pop through more, and it's more exciting than just like, It's like, you know,
Right.
it's like
Everyone's hitting on one.
Yeah, if you even if you do it a little bit after, a little bit before, it's like bam, instead of or bam, that kind of thing. I focus more on that because then I can start letting things happen, and I'm like, oh, I need to work into this, bam, you know, like kind of
Right.
It's more of a feeling thing than a thinking thing. So main thing is like outsourcing the whole like what should I do next? It's no. You should be focusing on grooving, and what song are you playing? What key are we in? What's the melody? Do you know that? You know, then it's like, well, we can go wherever we want to go.
Yeah, I feel like those are definitely some advanced like soloing techniques that are really cool to hear because like, yeah, like everyone listening, they're probably thinking like, I don't know how good they are at soloing or what, but those are, yeah, that's like, it's like you figure out what key you're in, you figure out, kind of mess around with your scales, make sure you know those, the major, pentatonic, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's like you start diving into the other territory of making that all come together as a story. And so your solo isn't just you playing like riffs that you always play in a pentatonic scale. It's this story of kind of dancing in and out with the band, and it's
rhythmic sophistication as opposed to like harmonic sophistication, because what's very tempting about the harmonic stuff is that you can always get crazier and there's always more to learn, but the stuff you're going to learn there is you're not really going to use most of the time. Like even like the people that do use it don't use it that much. You know what I mean? So what you're what's really going to pay the bills and stuff like that, and it's going to be fun too, is like learning the rhythmic
relationship,
the rhythmic sophistication of organizing your thoughts, like where to place your riffs and your stuff. So because like I have stock muscle memory, kind of like that's in there, but where you put it, it's like one, instead of going, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. So you, instead of, you know, it's just a different one. You gotta you're doing it around this, because this is the heaviest thing. This should be reserved for the bass, like boom, 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 boom. You know, you're kind of like you're on the opposite world of that, so that they can stay here, and then you can do freedom stuff, and it always clicks because you're not stepping on each other's world. You know, like that's like when you can tell, oh, this bass player is a bass player. Like he listens to bass players. He lives in that world. Or you could listen to the bass player and like, he's probably a guitar player that really loves bass, you know, like, because he's soloing, he's doing fills in the same place a guitar player would fill, right? So there's certain things where like guitars want to, you know, fill, and if you do it in the right space, and if the bass player does his in the right space, they never overlap. They never conflict with each other.
Right.
So that's a thing that's more like, how much does this drummer listen to drummers? How much does this drummer listen to, or this bass player listen to bass players? How much does the guitar player, you know what I mean? So
wow,
yeah,
that's super. No, that's super cool to think about. Yeah, it's cool to.
I love music. That's the thing. I fucking love music. If you get to a certain thing, it becomes what is it? Enter the Dragon by Bruce Lee. One of the lines the master says to him is like, I see your talents have reached the point of spiritual insight. Like, I'm a slow reader, you know what I mean? It takes me, just give me one sentence. And like, to me, that sentence is like, you know what I mean? Like your spirit, your talents have reached the point of spiritual insight. You know, that you can get to that point And it takes a lot of more focusing on the stuff I'm talking about rather than like the
technical.
content, you know, of like, oh, you want to know how to rip it on this thing? Here you go, $9.99. You know, like learn all these licks. So it's weird because everybody has to do is like oh, you learn country in 1 week. Like, it's like a gimmick thing where it's, you're selling things, but really it's here. And even the guys that are selling it and are professionals and good, they're still neglecting this part of it.
Yeah.
You don't want to run a race. You want to float in space. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be a winner. It's like everybody in space is winning. You know what I mean? You know, if there's a race, there's a loser. You know, you don't want to be. To me, it's like I know, like the Joe Bonamassas. I'll drop a name. He's a race guy. He's like, look how, yeah,
Right.
yeah. You know, he's like a NASCAR guitar player. You know, like where Derek Trucks is like he's in space and rooted in the swamp. You want to be those guys. You want to be those people. You know, it's all melody. It's all spiritual. It's not a game. It's like it's a need. It's a spiritual food for them. So like, yeah, that's what keeps me alive in this business.
So who's been the biggest motivator or supporter in your life or in your whole music career?
Biggest motivator
or supporter. Yeah, could be like your parents, or it could be a music instructor.
Definitely in the beginning, it would be my dad, because he you know got the instrument, you know, took me to Sam Ash, got the guitar and the amp, and then 8 months later it was like, oh, well, he's just sitting there. He's like, we should probably find some lessons. You know what I mean? And so, excuse me. So we got lessons. So he, you know, and then he would drive me back and forth from lessons. So that's pretty big support. So that would be my first big one. And then, you know, then you're kind of in it. And then it kind of has to be like a self-motivation thing, like in a way. I've had, you know, good luck, or not, I mean, not, you meet people. Once you start going up, you start meeting the same people, and you start running into the talent that you know, of your ilk, and you start meeting these people, and like I met some really good musicians and people, played with them, learned a lot from them, whether or not they actually say it, you know, or you just kind of, you're looking, like, yeah, that's how you do it, you know, like, wow. So that it's more been like just like looking around and like, oh wow, yeah, this guy's doing, wow, I love what he's doing, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, so yeah, now it's really, you got to self-motivate to kind of, inspiration. It's really, you got to motivate yourself to be inspired. So yeah, I would say that's that answer. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that. What advice would you give your younger self?
Learn how to sing more. Learn how to sing better.
Really?
Learn how to sing better. Yeah, learn how to get into the practice of singing, because then, you know, it'd be better by now. You know, for me, you know, if I would tell my younger self, I would say anybody playing music, like guitar, stuff like that, like learn how to sing, get better at it.
Just learn how to sing the melodies, the songs, the lyrics.
Learn how to sing. Learn how to sing. You know, sing. That is doing it. You know, so I'm more of a listener. So when I hear a song on the radio, I'm more listening to it. I'm not thinking, oh, let me sing along to it. That's what I meant. Like there's different types of people who get good at singing, and a lot of them are people that just sing along to things.
What do you think the singing does?
Oh, it's internal. You know, if you do it right, you know, it feels good. So it's like, I think in my way of thinking where it all kind of came from, I always kind of think back to like spirituals and like the, you know, Aunt Jemima in the kitchen, kind of like, you know, having to work, and but still like, like those are all like pentatonic scales. So they just feel good. They feel natural. Like just humming, you can feel the stuff. And so it's like, it's a really good, it's just music, and it's like coming from you. And, you know, Bobby McFerrin, you know, like that, where it's like, and that's all you need to make music. Wow, that's where it's at, you know? And like,
there's some essence to
well, because then if you do that and you connect it to the guitar, that's another kind of like lesson thing. It's like
a George Benson
thing. I think on my last album, I did this one solo where I sang it first, and then I learned what I sang, and I was like, whoa, I never play this. You know, I think like there's stuff you don't even know about yourself. You know what I mean? Like what you would play, and so to me, that's a lesson I've been kind of like. I kind of put off. I don't, you know, every once in a while I'm like I should be learning exactly what I'm thinking. Because if you ever, you know what I noticed, like when like a band is opening up for you, or a really good band is playing, and then you're thinking in your head, oh man, I wish I was playing. You're like, I'd be doing this. All that stuff you're thinking is you. Is you. Like, oh man, I'd be like, you know, you're like you have like this thing of like, oh, that's what I would, you know. You should know how to do that. You should know how to do that. You should figure out what you want to do, like what's coming out of you. And that's more exciting, because then it's like it's just your imagination, not your fingers, that are limiting you. So if you you know, that's where all the rhythmic sophistication really helps, because then it's like it's less like do re mi, and it's more like you know, like it's a sport. You're taking something that's not so this, and you're putting it into a thing that's like that. But so it's going to sound bigger if you're using your whole body to do it and your whole essence to do it. So yeah, that's if you can think it and you can learn what you're thinking, how to do that, man. I'm still trying to do that, because there was a solo on there where like a friend said, like, oh man, I can hear you on here. I'm like that's funny, because that's the one solo I sang first. I didn't just like plug in and like let me rip something, you know.
Right.
So
that's such a cool way to approach that too.
Yeah, it's the only way. It should be the only way. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's kind of scary, because like, how do you do it? Like, you know how frustrating it is to like go and be like, what the fuck what was that? You know, like I figured it out. And it's like, I've never played this before.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it was something that was like came out of my head as a thing. So
that's so cool.
Yeah,
that's such a cool way to think about it.
That would be a good lesson for people to do. You know, I want people to get not so burned out on like that's the craziest thing about YouTube and stuff like that. Like, it's good and bad at the same time, because it's like there's just so much more to learn, and you're not necessarily learning it, or I don't know. It's weird. It's weird, but the vocal thing where it's coming from you, and you're learning what comes out naturally, like that's stuff to develop. You know what I mean? So I've been trying to focus on stuff like that, in that vein.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, that's probably why you're so great at soloing and
I love doing it. I've had enough time to do it, and that really the sectioning off of ideas in like a free solo really kind of helped keep it going for me. Like once I learned how to do that, and I think the first time I really figured it out, like I wasn't even thinking about it. The drummer I was playing with, who plays with Widespread Panic now, Dwayne Trucks, he did this thing where like he'd be playing for 4 bars, and then lead me up to like the next section of 4 bars, he'd be like, you know what I mean, like leading into it, and it just had like a jam bandy, like without being like jam band. It was such a like, yeah, we're going, and then the audience is like, yeah, because everybody, but he was leading it. I'm like, oh, that's what it is, you know, like, and then I wasn't even on board, but I still felt it. And then once I started like noticing it, I'm like, I would tell like drummers, I'm like, hey, like every like 4 bars, like lead into the next 4 bars. Like do something like whatever you're playing, like lead into that, and we can use that, you know. So that's been a big like lesson that has nothing to do with scales and nothing to do with this and that. It's just like, oh, this is how you play it and keep it interesting. And you're not just up there like noodling. Like I hate the word noodling. I mean, some people use it and they don't mean it like that. And I'm like, I'm playing, dude. I'm not noodling. I'm not like, you know, like what are you talking about? Like this is music, you know. So yeah, but I know that feeling. I know that feeling of like being up there. And you're just like, how much longer do I have to do this? You know, like, no, shouldn't feel like that. You know.
Man, so much good stuff in that. Wow, that's great. I love those answers. Cool. Let's wrap it up, man.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
October 5th, actually, we're doing the Fall Fest at Lee Canyon. It's free. We're going at noon. It's a 90-minute set.
Sweet.
So Carlos Guerrero is playing right after us, so that's cool too. And I forget who's playing last, but it's free. It starts at noon. Lee Canyon, outdoors. So that's the next one coming up, and then I have some other Sand Dollar ones. I try and keep it posted on, you know, Jimmy Powers V. If you look me up on Instagram and Facebook, I try and keep it updated there. But those are like that's my main gigs, and then I'm gonna be going in the studio soon. So yeah, I have 2 albums out. You can look that up. You know, if you just look up Jimmy Powers V, you'll find there's How's Art Thou? No wait, How's Art Though? That's what it is. How's Art Though? And then the second one is Underground Lover. And then working on the third one coming up, and that's it.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Busy. Cool, man. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.